Atlantis found the mathematical proof that Plato's lost city was Doggerland. It's like a memorial to Atlantis or Lioness. These are the stone buoys that mark a drowned world. Christopher Hitchens. For more than 2 millennia, Plato's story of Atlantis has been treated as allegory, a moral fable about human pride and divine punishment. Yet his description is numerical, hydrological and geological. When examined through Langdon's hydrological calibration system and the earliest secure date chronology, every dimension of the account aligns precisely with the lost land of Doggerland beneath the North Sea. Atlantis was not mythical. It was the maritime heart of prehistoric Europe, destroyed in stages by the mathematical certainty of post-glacial sea level rise. 19th century oyster dredgers off Yorkshire and Norfolk repeatedly hauled up antlers, mammoth bones and human artefacts from the seabed. The first rediscoveries of a drowned landscape, the physical echoes of Plato's lost world.
2. Plato's ratios, Doggerland's geography and the ringed cities. In Timaeus and Critias, Plato wrote that Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Heracles, with a central plain 2,000 by 3,000 stadia, about 370 by 550 kilometres. Doggerland's central plateau, reconstructed from bathymetric data, measures 375 by 560 kilometres, a deviation of less than 2%. High-resolution bathymetry and seismic mapping reveal arcuate terraces and paleochannels surrounding Dogger Bank, natural rings and waterways that echo Plato's description. Yet the most compelling confirmation lies in archaeology and hydrology rather than geology alone. Across Britain and northern France, the earliest causewayed enclosures reproduce the concentric ring geometry of Atlantis, alternating banks, ditches, and causeways encircling a central platform. Although classed as early Neolithic, their elevations and radiocarbon plateaus indicate earlier origins. Between 6400 and 5200 BCE under Langdon's ESD calibration during Doggerland's final centuries.
Examples include Windmill Hill in Wiltshire, triple concentric ditches with segmented causeways, elevation 223 metres, dated about 6400 BCE. Hambledon Hill in Dorset, twin chalk rings on an aquifer ridge, elevation 192 metres, dated about 6100 BCE. Whitehawk in Sussex, 4 concentric ditches overlooking a former coastal spring, elevation 54 metres, dated about 6000 BCE. Camp de César at Bréville-sur-Mer in Normandy, an oval multi-ditch enclosure near a paleolagoon, elevation 68 metres, dated about 5600 BCE. Champ-Durand in Vendée, triple concentric limestone ditches linked to an ancient shoreline, elevation 38 metres, dated about 5400 BCE. All 5 occupy hydrological boundaries, spring lines, valley heads or marine terraces, the same environmental niche as Doggerland's drowned ports. Their ditch fills contain fine silts and water-laid deposits rather than defensive rubble. The multiple rings of Windmill Hill, Whitehawk and Champ-Durand, divided by causeways, reproduce Plato's 3 zones of sea and 2 of land with striking precision.
Langdon's hydrological model shows that during the Holocene thermal maximum, the water table across southern Britain stood several metres higher. At Windmill Hill, the primary ditch lies 6 to 8 metres above the modern spring line, a level capable of retaining water only around 6400 to 6000 BCE, 3 millennia before the Avebury stone circle. The later monument simply reoccupied a prehistoric water basin. Similar evidence occurs at Hambledon Hill and the Kennet headwaters near Avebury, where chalk aquifers still discharge at the same contour lines. These early rings functioned as harbours, reservoirs and ceremonial basins, direct descendants of Doggerland's canal harbours. Together, these concentric settlements form a cultural arc around the vanished North Sea basin. Doggerland sits at the centre of this distribution, the source civilization whose engineers exported the ring city design as the seas rose. Archaeological and mathematical proof number 2. The ring city of Atlantis survives in the earliest causewayed enclosures of Britain and France, hydraulic, concentric and Mesolithic in origin.
3. Chronology recalibrated when the first ports were lost. The story of Atlantis entered Greek record through Solon's visit to the Egyptian city of Sais around 590 BCE, where priests described a catastrophe 9,000 years before his time. That places the first great inundation within the range of 9,500 to 8,300 BCE, confirmed by Langdon's ESD hydrological curve. Conventional Bayesian calibration compresses time, suggesting Doggerland sank abruptly around 6,000 BCE. Langdon's model, correcting for hydrological lag and carbon-14 plateaus, shows instead that flooding began between 9,500 and 8,300 BCE, exactly matching Plato's timeline. At this stage, the northern Doggerland territories, today's Shetland, Orkney and the Scottish Shelf, hosted the principal ports of a highly developed marine civilization commanding the Irish Sea corridor and Atlantic approaches.
4. The 5 Millennia Chronicle and the Final Flood. Plato's narrative spans 5 millennia, the complete life cycle of Doggerland. Stage 1, the rise between 9,500 and 8,000 BCE, expansion of canal harbours and wetland ports, population growth and trade. Stage 2, the flourish, 8,000 to 6,500 BCE, a golden age of Atlantic exchange, canalised rivers and ring ports thrive. Stage 3, the catastrophe, about 6,300 BCE, the Storegga tsunami devastates Doggerland, Plato's earthquakes and floods. Stage 4, the recovery, 6,300 to 5,200 BCE, Doggerland survivors rebuild on Dogger Bank, maintaining trade with Orkney and Shetland. Stage 5, the final retreat, 5,200 to 4,200 BCE, rising seas isolate the Dogger Bank archipelago. The last island becomes the final capital before total loss and migration south. The Storegga event was a turning point, not extinction. The civilization endured another 2 millennia before the final loss of Dogger Bank around 4,200 BCE, the later catastrophe remembered by Plato.
5. The northern capitals, Orkney, Shetland and the Doggerland legacy. The stone villages and the circles of Orkney and Shetland, Skara Brae, the Ness of Brodgar, the Ring of Brodgar and Stennis represent the civilization's final northern capitals. Their subterranean houses countered wind and rising groundwater. Their circular plans perpetuated Doggerland's harbour geometry. They are not primitive beginnings but refuges of continuity, the last architectural phase of Atlantis.
6. Stonehenge, the slaughter stone, the altar stone, and the memory of Doggerland. When Doggerland finally vanished around 4,200 BCE, its descendants built a monument of remembrance. At Stonehenge, 2 recumbent stones preserve that memory. The slaughter stone, long misinterpreted as a fallen upright, was carved to appear lumpy and rolling. Excavations by Hawley and Newall showed it was deliberately set below the chalk surface within a water-holding hollow, forming an island within the moat. Its contours depict Doggerland's terrain, a symbolic relief map of the drowned homeland. The altar stone, a mica-rich sandstone from southern Scotland, links Stonehenge geologically to the submerged strata beneath the North Sea. Together they form a sightline through the avenue directly toward Doggerland. The pairing embodies life, death and rebirth, the slaughter stone as the drowned past, the glittering altar stone as the living memory. Stonehenge was not a temple of sacrifice, but a memorial to a lost world.
7. The elephants of Atlantis, zoological proof. Plato described elephants and marsh fauna in Atlantis. The subtropical Britain hoax demonstrates these animals genuinely existed in Holocene Britain. Elephant, hippo and lion bones are redeposited post-glacial remains between 9,500 and 4200 BCE swept south by floodwaters from Doggerland. Mathematical proof number 3. The elephants of Atlantis were real, living within Doggerland's warm Holocene wetlands until the rising sea erased them.
8. After the final flood, the exodus of the marine civilization. The Storegga tsunami shattered Doggerland but did not end its people. For nearly 2 millennia they endured on shrinking islands, rebuilding ring ports and canal sanctuaries. Only when the last land disappeared did the maritime exodus begin. Around 4200 BCE, construction in the north ceased and identical architecture appeared along the Atlantic seaways, clear evidence of diaspora. Britain and the North Sea ends about 4200 BCE, final northern monuments including Stonehenge 2, Silbury Hill and Wansdyke canals. Brittany and Atlantic France between 4100 and 3900 BC for resettlement wave, passage graves and circular sanctuaries. Portugal and Spain between 3800 and 3500 BCE, second expansion south, Almendres, Antegrande and Zambujero mirror Doggerland geometry. Western Mediterranean, including Malta and Sardinia, between 3400 and 3100 BCE, third wave, Tarxian, Nidra and Nuragic towers, the final flowering. As megalith building stopped in the north, it began in the south. This was not diffusion of ideas through farmers, but the migration of Doggerland mariners, the last Atlanteans carrying their hydrological science down the Atlantic facade into the Mediterranean.
9. The hydrological equation of Atlantis, Plato's central plain, was 2,000 stadia wide and 3,000 long, roughly 370 by 550 kilometres. Doggerland's measures 375 by 560. The total sea rise described by Plato was 38 metres. The ESD model predicts 38.4 metres. The first inundation, 9,000 years before Solon, matches the range 9,500 to 8,300 BCE. Statistical correlation, r squared equals 0.998. Plato's geometry and Langdon's hydrology describe the same landmass.
10. Conclusion. From allegory to archaeometry, Atlantis was not a fable. It was Doggerland, the drowned maritime civilization that connected Britain to Europe and ruled the North Sea basin for over 5,000 years. When measured, modelled and excavated, every parameter of Plato's account aligns with the geological and archaeological record. 10 lines of evidence proving Doggerland is Atlantis. 1. Geometric match, identical size and proportions. 2. Hydrological consistency. Flooding begins exactly when Plato said. 3. Concentric city design. Ringed causewayed enclosures mirror Atlantis. 4. Mathematical correlation, statistical match of 0.998. 5. Archaeological continuity, Mesolithic to Neolithic harbour evolution. 6. Chronological coherence, 5-stage sequence matches Plato's. 7. Zoological verification, elephants, hippos and lions all confirmed. 8. Cultural Orkney, Shetland and Stonehenge as living memory. 9. Megalithic diffusion, diaspora along Atlantic seaways into the Mediterranean. 10. Scientific integrity, real geology, measurable data, no lost continents required.
Why other theories fail? Santorini or Thera, too small and too late, only 16 kilometres across. Crete and the Minoan civilization, within the Mediterranean, not beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Canary Islands and Azores, no continental shelf or archaeological strata. Caribbean or Americas, thousands of kilometres away, no classical connection. The Eye of the Sahara, inland desert, not maritime, no hydrology or fauna. Only Doggerland satisfies every measurable criterion. Correct size, latitude, sea level chronology, verified artefacts, and a proven maritime culture. Atlantis was the civilization of Doggerland, a Mesolithic maritime power drowned beneath rising post-glacial seas. Its engineers canalized rivers, built ring ports, and later memorialized their homeland in the concentric monuments of Britain and Europe. Atlantis did not sink in divine anger, Langdon writes. It drowned beneath the mathematics of water and on Salisbury Plain its descendants built their monument to remember.